Good morning, everyone. Call the Board of Water and Wastewater Commissioners meeting to brain fart. To order. Wow. The Town of Harwich Board of Water and Wastewater Commissioners meeting for Harwich Water Department at 196 Chatham Road, Harwich, Mass. Friday, December 17th, 2021 at 11 a.m. We have no executive session, no public comment, announcements. Consent agenda for the minutes will be postponed to our next meeting. So next up is abatements, and 584 Route 28, Unit 6. And it seems as though we have a lot of information for this abatement. And I'm assuming Rosie prepared this information for us?
If you'd like.
You want to give us, you want to give us a rundown?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to give us a rundown on 584?
Sure. So this account, as you can see from the packet, had quite a lot of usage, and so in anticipation of a potential abatement, we went ahead and did log the meter, and it did confirm leak at the property for a good 2 months. So I emailed the abatement link to the owner, and for whatever reason, we never received it until December. So it's a good thing we did elect it when we did, because that 2 months has passed. So it does confirm that there was a leak down there. There is an outdoor spigot on the property, and she indicated that she is rarely here, but she mentioned that the outdoor spigot may have possibly been the cause, or maybe other unit owners using it, or I'm not quite sure how the setup is down there. Because she did the dye test inside, and that did not result in anything. So she's not aware of how this could have happened. However, there is an outside source for her unit.
And it seems as though there's one meter pit for all 7 units or something to that effect?
No, all of the meters of this particular property are on a manifold in your room.
Okay.
And that is accessed via the property manager or the person who's down there. I think he's also a tenant owner, and so he arranges access for us to get into that meter area whenever we need to. He did indicate that, well, I'll be fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Question?
Noreen?
The customer says they were here for just a few days in July. You don't happen to know what dates those were?
No, from what I remember, it's very, like, occasional weekend, here or there, so.
Right, yeah.
I don't remember her saying anything specific.
Because it almost seems like, something changed, in July, and then was, continued. I mean, it certainly could be neighbors, but it could have even been something they did themselves during their stay there.
Well, there have been cases in the past where, and John, I'm sure you're probably familiar with this, when someone, the flapper gets stuck, and you jiggle it and then it stops and it's all good again.
Right.
And then, it might happen once upon a time in the past or again in the future. So it seems normal, and then when you go away, it might be leaking until you use it again, and then it corrects itself. We have seen that, not saying that that's what's happened here, but that's a scenario.
Yeah. You can even have a hose on very low and not notice that if you're not a regular, person. It could be a hose, her own, their own hose attached to a spigot.
Well, that's just it. If there's, even the smallest thing happening, if it's going around the clock, it's surprising when customers find out how much water actually goes through, even when it seems to be really small.
Right.
Because it's going around the clock for months.
The bottom line is the water went through the meter. There's no damage to the meter.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a new meter too. So.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Well, and you guys shut it off when you saw it was a high usage?
No, she wanted to keep it on because she does come back and forth.
So in September or October, why is there no usage from?
Because she came down, she wanted to test the inside,
right?
So she needed the water on, and so as part of our regular spiel, whenever there's something happening at a property, we give the option, well, do you want the water off?
Right.
And in this case, she wanted to keep it on because she wanted to test the property if she comes on regardless.
So that period from November and December is now working properly again. So it seems like it was something that happened when she came back. Just shut it off. No?
I don't see, not knowing when she actually was here.
Right.
I can't be sure. But the leak seemed to have stopped before she actually came down to test the toilets.
Weird.
So that's why I'm perhaps thinking we can have those.
Yeah.
So the outside faucet could have been used by anybody.
It would seem that way, that's how it's set up.
Yeah. You should have a shut off inside the house so you can turn that off so nobody can use it.
And she's only requesting $45 of the 614? Is that,
She wants to pay $45.
oh, she wants to pay 45 and she wants a request for the balance?
Yeah.
Oh,
Any other questions? Entertain a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move we deny.
Is there a second?
a second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Well, this is a lot of good information. I mean, this is like hour by hour, so,
Beneath her command.
yeah, thank you very much.
Pretty impressed.
Thank you.
Sorry I was late. I got my booster yesterday and I'm in a little
That's all right.
slow motion. I know, it took 3 weeks, but, and yeah, it was at the county. They were so organized.
Really?
Oh my God. And I guess they do have walk-ins because they had a handwritten sign, no walk-ins today, so if anybody's listening.
Yeah, you're up.
All right, so back on the agenda this week is the FY23 water budget. We do have some updates since the last time it was before the board. We received a preliminary draft of the indirects for next year. Also included in the packet was the correspondence from the finance director. I would just draw your attention to the notes that she included with the indirects. Just stating that some of those are still waiting on final numbers from insurance and whatnot, so it may change again slightly, but we do have a better figure today than we did previously. Other changes to note, at the last meeting we discussed really the reprioritization, if you will, of the long-term debt coming off from the Route 39 tank, so that is about $167,000 of debt that came off. So you'll see in the budget, we increased the building and grounds maintenance line item. That was primarily due to pending project or ongoing projects that we have.
Yeah, what is that? I can't see it.
Halfway down.
That line item is on the
41.
other page.
52, 41.
Oh, yeah,
First page.
Yep, I got it, thank you.
You know, we historically have carried about $45,000 in that line item. What we're hoping to do this upcoming fiscal year is complete the conduit project that we did this year. So we ran underground conduit from the street about 600-700 feet back, really to get through this avenue of trees here where we've had trees come down on the power lines. So we're trying to get those all underground. And we also ran a fiber conduit from this facility all the way up to the Route 39 tank. So I've reallocated that money to the building and grounds maintenance because we're going to have to purchase primary electric copper cables to run out, as well as the fiber to connect to the Route 39 tank. So I thought that was an appropriate place to support those projects. And there's also an increase to restore the meter read devices and supplies line item. You'll see about $59,000 added to that line item, which restores it to the $180,000 that we had brought it to prior to the level funding budget requirements over the last couple of years. So we've restored the meters line item and used the remaining funds to support the electrical and fiber upgrades. So those are the big changes between last review and this one.
So the building and maintenance, the building,
It's about the sixth one down in the expense.
so the building and ground
first
maintenance,
page.
that 130 is basically just for this year?
Yes.
Do the conduit, okay. Because next year when we're doing the budget again, we have 130 in that line item.
Yeah, right, exactly. We'll be reducing that down.
All right.
And really, one of the things, this gives us an opportunity to tackle a project like this, and what I'll refer to as kind of an in-between year. We do have on the capital plan for FY24 to do the Route 28 water main project, so where we're going to intend on bonding that project, the money that we're realizing this year from the debt coming off will likely be absorbed by the debt for the upcoming project. So this is kind of a one-off chance for us to take advantage
What
of.
project is that that's coming off of?
The painting of the Route 39 tank.
All right. Any questions? Good.
Oh, yeah, one.
Mr. Powell.
The 5070 OPEB, is that going down now? At all?
No, and maybe we could consider, so the OPEB liability, bear with me one second so I can just get our
Mhm.
valuation.
Sure.
So the OPEB valuations are done I believe it's every 2 years. The last one that we received was fiscal year ending 2019. And our unfunded liability, bear with me. At that time, our total unfunded liability was $2,076,000. So we have, in order to meet that unfunded liability, we have a determined contribution of $175,000 annually. So in order for us to fully fund that unfunded liability, we need to increase that $50,000 line item up to $175,000 annually. So we've been contributing at $50,000 now for a number of years.
Yeah.
The last couple years, the water department has been the only contribution to the town's OPEB liability. I believe last year they didn't fund OPEB due to COVID and everything. So our contribution has been the sole one. I guess my personal thought is we are a small percentage of that unfunded townwide liability, and we've been contributing the majority for some time now.
Yeah.
And I guess I would be reluctant to recommend going up to 175, here when the town isn't necessarily making their required contribution.
Mhm.
And I only say that because even if we make our $175,000 contribution a year, we are not separate from the town, so we're not immune to any potential impact from that remaining unfunded. So I just feel like the town and us should be making some equal contribution, and the town shouldn't be reliant solely upon the water enterprise's contribution to fund that unfunded liability. Does that make
My
sense?
understanding that what we contribute to OPEB goes into the general fund for the town, but yet in that line, it's separate for us, and it's not just a general.
Yeah, so, and I recalling...
That's concerning to me.
And it's not based on conversations I've had, it's not something that's really negotiable. So the unfunded liability for the town is, and I'm trying to think of a way to, so if we're a separate financial entity as an enterprise fund, but the retirement liability is that of the town. So if we funded our unfunded liability at $175,000 a year, and the pension fund degraded to a point where this unfunded liability became a real, impact on employee pension holders and whatnot, we wouldn't be immune to the impacts of that based on us fully contributing our amount. And that's unfortunate, if we were responsible and contribute that money, that it would protect the employed group of that liability, but it's just, that's not how it is.
I thought legally that had to be funded.
It is supposed to be funded there, I want to say, I forget the deadline, it's not now, but that unfunded liability is supposed to be met, I want to say it was 2025 or 35, I'd have to get back to you on that maturity date, if you will, that we have to have it funded by, but,
And what's the number that we're supposed to be fully funded for the water department?
$175,054 as an annual contribution.
Right, but what's the goal? What's the number for that goal?
The full unaccounted for is $2,076,602, reflects the water department's unfunded liability.
And where are we at?
So, we've contributed $50,000 a year, right, so we're, every year we're $125,000 short. The actuarial value of assets as of June of 2018 was $53,741. Let me see, projected benefit payments, fiscal year is 93. So I want to say we've contributed $50,000 for the last 4 years, so we've contributed $200,000.
Yeah.
Now, what I would say is the $2,076,000 liability for our department is constantly reevaluated, or it's reevaluated every 2 years and takes into consideration changes in health insurance and things like that. So, who know? And I'm just throwing the pandemic into the mix. I don't know what the cost of pandemic with regard to health insurance costs is going to impact that unfunded liability, which we won't realize until the next valuation is done, which I believe should be this year.
You said a number, you said the 2 million is a percentage of the towns, did you say about 20%?
No, so the total town, let me see, I don't know if school's in here, that's why I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
Okay, school is in there. So school's included. The total town liability is $34,919,135, and that was as of June 30th, 2018.
About 10 years ago when this topic, got tons of attention, I had to go to, I can't tell you how many presentations with charts and everything on the whole thing, and so I'm rusty on it, and, if it wasn't such a boring topic, I would probably take another presentation, but for the life of me, as a municipal worker, I'll never understand it, We always get told that we, for the most part, pay for our own retirements, in the 90% or whatever. So, I guess what I'm hearing is that this is paying for the town's, well, I retired through another town, so it's not Howard, so I can talk, but this is paying for the town's portion of my medics.
Yes.
That's it. So how can it possibly get up to 35? I pay $150 a month for that. So they pay the difference, 40%, right? But how can it get up to 35 million?
So, I guess this is my understanding of it, or at least the way I've kind of worked through it in my head. Let's take a 30-year
Right,
town employee, right? Their pension contribution is different than mine.
right.
They're probably grandfathered at a 5% of their annual salary or whatever
I
the
think they're
number might
mostly
be.
gone by now, but, you know, there's certainly some 8%, 7%.
Yeah, 8, 7.
Yeah.
So basically, the percentage contribution that we make as employees
Right,
didn't get corrected frequently enough to account for the rise in health insurance costs that are being utilized through the retirement group. So that's where the gap is, I guess. And and to get back to the town-wide figure, the town, to fund this liability, should be contributing $2.96 million a year to OPEB.
but you see what I'm saying? It seems like this should be going down. I mean,
Right.
I was an 11%er, the 7%ers are mostly gone.
Yeah.
There might be a couple of 8s left there, but not many.
Right.
They'd have to be 110, by now. So I just don't, I'll have to go to another lecture sometime because it just doesn't make sense to me, that I'm causing, this huge problem,
It's all your fault, Murray.
But I pay $150 a month,
Right.
it just doesn't make sense, but so
Well,
be it.
That's why I asked the question, because it seems to me that we've been paying for it a lot
Yeah.
longer than 4 years,
Right,
you know?
Well, we started talking about it when I came on the board.
Yeah.
It's been what?
So maybe it's been 5 years, and this would be,
I would say 6
Yeah.
years, just because, this is my third term, so that's 9 years, so 6 years, because I've only served one on my third term.
yeah.
Well, 6 years, I'd say.
You're on your third term already.
Yeah.
would we ever want Carol to talk to us about it, or is it so much in the weeds, we got other things to do? And that's fine by me, if that's how you
At
feel.
this point, I think we got it covered.
Yeah,
And
We're gonna pay for a lot longer.
right.
And this is how every town works.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
it's
a
a
state.
standard state.
No, I agree, it just doesn't make,
How does the town get away with not contributing when we are? I don't say get away with it.
Yeah,
but how
why do we
are they-
contribute and they
right.
don't?
We have a little bit more fiscal, I guess less under the,
More
when
employees.
they are balancing the budget and, it's a fire truck or a OPEB, or something, OPEB is gonna be the thing that gets cut. We've been fortunate over the past, 5-6 years that we've been able to maintain, funding this line item through, the level funding budget directives and whatnot. And I think it's just something that they haven't been able to make the same progress on.
But are they required by
And I
state law to fund it?
I feel like it's 2050, that's the number that's kind of coming back
Yeah, 2050 sounds about right.
vaguely, is that it's 2050 is the funding target deadline. The water department, we could, and Noreen, back to your question, sorry, I just noticed something that can inform your inquiry about, of the 2 million liability that we have, 1.1 million of it is for current retirees, beneficiaries, and dependents, and 972,000 of it is for current active employees. So it is split between both, and I guess that speaks to the inflation, health insurance inflation is
Right.
outpacing our contributions as well.
And the only thing that makes me even more confused when you tell me that is if the half of it is for current employees, why don't we just raise it? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? I mean,
I would support that.
everybody who works everywhere, I'm not trying to be mean to people, but if your health insurance goes up, you pay it. You don't start a fund that says we'll pay it by 2050. So it just doesn't make sense to me.
And I agree wholeheartedly,
Yeah.
and as a young contributor to the pension, I would fully support a pension reform that would fully fund through our contributions this liability.
Right. Doesn't make any
But it
sense.
would require pension
Yeah.
reform, which I'm sure is a sticky subject
Impossible,
to
they say.
address.
That's why, I'm sorry to go on, I'm done now, But that's why, retirees don't even get that 150, for instance, I pay. It doesn't even count towards pre-tax dollars. Have that old-fashioned
Right.
thing. Because retirements, everybody goes, no, it's too hard to change that law. So we have an archaic system anyway. So I don't even get the benefit of that, which I calculated, and for me it would have been $300 more. And of course I wrote to the retirement board, and they literally, after 3 letters, called me and said, Noreen, we don't have time for it. So there you go.
I found that hard to believe.
Well, they did. They said, more important stuff. I was like, well,
Does that mean that the town at some point has to come up with a very large chunk of
Sounds like
cash?
it, doesn't it?
It does. Am I understanding that
Yeah,
correctly?
it's an unfunded liability, and I'm, there's a relationship between the liability and the state, the deadline, that I, is certainly out of my area of expertise, but
But then,
I don't know that
I guess how can you have level, what's the correct term, level funding if you're not including this?
Right.
If you're ignoring it, I guess.
yeah,
Wow. Learn something new every day. Thank you.
yeah.
All right,
Yeah, you're right.
that's discouraging, but, okay. What else you got, Dan?
That is on the water,
Yeah.
side.
We'll slide old folks, say we'll pass it on to the younger generation.
Well, let's hope the younger generation can pay it, or nobody, including the sly old folks, are gonna have anything, right?
Yeah.
And just, to note, at the, second to last line on the water budget, we are submitting a budget consistent with the budget directive that is level funded from last year.
And that's due to retirements, wages, and health insurance?
The level funding directive,
Yeah.
my understanding is it's primarily born out of Monomoy and Cape Tech, and the assessments from the school districts are, I believe the new Cape Tech school has seen an increase in enrollment, which is going to considerably increase our assessment. With the increase in Cape Tech and students leaving Monomoy, I think that increases there's a relationship there as well. So there's a considerable amount of new debt, I don't know if debt's not the right word, but those assessments going up, prompting the town to take a conservative, approach to the budget. I think until the magnitude of those are fully understood, and then we should be seeing some information from administration in the next couple of weeks, I believe, regarding budget directive that may intimate some change, but I think they're still working through understanding what those new assessments are going to look like.
All right.
Can you, well, first,
No, that's wastewater.
huh?
That's wastewater.
Yeah,
That's,
aren't we on wastewater?
We're doing water right now.
Yeah, I was just wrapping up,
Then water.
Okay.
See, I caught you that time. You wanted to jump ahead on the agenda
I
again.
did.
But I caught you that time.
I
Like,
did.
whoa.
Well, notice what I keep
Slow
saying
down.
here now.
Slow down.
Yeah.
Dan, you gotta finish the water before Noreen jumps us up to wastewater?
that concludes my water update, water
Do you
budget.
wanna ask a question before Dan does his presentation on wastewater, or do you wanna wait?
I'll wait. We have a system, Dan and I.
All right, any other questions about the water budget? Good. Dan, wastewater.
All right, so included in the packet for the wastewater budget is two, I guess, representations of it. One that really ties back to what the munis budget looks like, and then also the worksheet that is used to inform the munis worksheet. We are still missing some information. I got an incomplete copy of the sewer budget from the town of Chatham last night. I think it was like page 2 of 2, and missing the first page that has the detail of the line items that I need to actually enter. So in the budget, in the packet today, reflects updates to our indirect expenses. So you can see those went from $31,700 to $32,076. the wastewater enterprise salary and wages have been updated based on our internal information, which is, this covers my salary and the salaries of water department staff that will be interacting with sewer operations. The expense category, I will draw your attention to the worksheet because it does, the expense category includes IMA related costs and Harwich only costs. So if we want to jump into the worksheet first, so the way in which we are billed for the IMA and the use of Chatham's wastewater treatment plant is through fixed expenses and flow variable expenses. So I believe it was a year ago or 2 years ago now, I sat down with Chatham and we went through their line item budget to identify which expenses in their budget are flow variable and which are fixed. Fixed expenses are based upon our purchase capacity of the Chatham treatment plant. So that we have purchased 23.08% of the capacity. So if we look at the worksheet, for example, the first line item under expenses, regular wages, we pay 23.08% of the regular wage line item as a fixed fee to the town of Chatham. Looking down at the ones just below that, you'll see testing, electric at the wastewater treatment facility, gas, heat. Those are flow variable expenses. So to determine what those expenses are going to be, they're billed based on a percentage of Harwich flow as a percent of Chatham's total wastewater flows. So I've obtained the effluent flow, monthly flows from the Chatham wastewater treatment plant, and I have then to put in for Harwich what I estimate our service hookup connection rate will be. Where we have a 2-year order to connect and 440 parcels connecting, it equals about 18 new sewer connections a month. So using that figure and the average water use, we're using those together to estimate what Harwich's wastewater flows will be, so that we can then evaluate that against what Chatham's flows are to determine our percentage share, flow variable wise, for those expenses. So if we look at the kind of orange column, that is, the first quarter of flow variable expenses. That would cover July, August, and September, which are going to be the highest flow months of the wastewater treatment plant, just like with the water side. That's our peak pumping quarter. The flows at the Chatham plant for that quarter equal 32.61% of their total annual flow, and you'll see that percentage figure in the topmost column in the orange there. Our flows equal the 8.47% of Chatham's flow. So we then apply that percentage to the flow variable expense. I'm sorry if this is confusing. It just is kind of confusing.
Total sex to me. Keep going.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yeah.
So the Chatham 32.61%, that's because they only use 32.61% now of their whole system? Or?
No, that is the, so, and this is where it gets confusing, right? So what is the 32.61%? That is the, if you take their total wastewater flows for the whole year, 32% of it happens in that first quarter.
Oh, okay.
So what I use that figure for is when we have flow variable expenses like water treatment chemicals, right? I'm using that 32% to figure out how much of their water treatment chemical line item is going to be spent during that quarter. And then I have to take the 8.5% that is our flow, and that's what we would be on the hook for of their quarterly expense. So I have to apportion their flow variable expenses throughout the year to determine when the money's going to be spent, so that I can figure out how much of the flow is gonna be ours and how much of that expense we're gonna have to cover.
And that's
That
the
makes sense.
fiscal quarter, so July 1 through October 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Got it. Thank you.
No.
So I'm just having a math block here. If you had taken 100% of the previous years, you can't do it that way and work back into the same number? It doesn't work?
100% of the previous
Of
year.
Chatham's flow, like the, let's say on those chemicals you talked about, 100% of what they spent would have been 25, 29, about 40,000, according to these numbers real
Mhm.
quick. And you can't say that our percentage was 40% of that or whatever. I'm just curious why it's
Well,
done by quarter.
Because our, I do it by quarter, at least in this stage, because we're issuing an order to connect, mandating connections, and our flow is gonna be increasing as
Right.
more customers come online, and what our flow is this quarter isn't gonna be the same as it was,
Right.
last quarter. So I have to account for the growth in our flow, making up a bigger percentage of the total wastewater flow to the plant, because that's going to increase our percent share throughout the course of the year. So as an example, quarter one, Chatham's 32.61% of
Right.
their annual flow. If we were at build-out, our percentage, instead of being 8.47, might be, 50%.
Okay,
So, it's to capture
all right.
the variability in our flow in comparison. There's a relationship between the two.
Can you tell me which numbers on the worksheet add up to the 358,000 that you have on the Munis sheet under professional services?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second. Just gonna pull up my...
Well, the big ones, I mean.
Yeah. So the expenses that add up to the 358 include the contract operations, SCADA services.
Slow down for me, so you mean the Howard only expense?
There's some, the majority of the professional services are all the IMA costs.
Okay, so the one that says contract services?
That contract services line item there is let me just think of the best way to explain it. Professional services on the Munis budget that you have on your left includes all of the items that have IMA in the first column, as well as our contract services.
Of 150?
Yeah.
Okay.
As well as our SCADA services of 3,000.
Where's that?
Lower.
Okay. Okay.
It also includes, okay, so probably be easy to tell you what it doesn't include.
That's all right.
Because it includes everything but 5 line items.
Yeah, all right, well, that's okay for a start. And is our contract settled with Weston and Sampson?
So I do have the price, the price
Right.
for our, as written is about 143,000.
Okay.
And,
All right, that's close.
it's $143,400. And that is the annual fixed fee for the existing stations for a 1 day a week. And so we have we have a DEP mandate as far as pump station inspection frequency, and then we have all of the other services that we need the operators to do, dig safe markouts, sewer service inspections, and things like that. What the 143.4 covers is 5 half-days, so they'll be Monday through Friday, 4 hours a day. That will be the time in which they do the pump station inspections and all the other services we need. That figure is good up through 100,000 gallons per day per station. Once a wastewater station exceeds 100,000 gallons per day, it's mandated to have daily inspections by DEP. So once that occurs, the 143,000 would go up to 162,600. So it's not a big jump, and I don't foresee us breaking the 100,000 gallon threshold for some time.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question? Going forward, if we need police detail for whatever, digging up or whatever, does that come into this budget, Dan, or is that a town?
No, it would be paid out of this budget.
This budget, okay.
So we have 143,000 for our contract ops. I did budget in here 150,000. I didn't create a police detail line item yet because I don't have enough information to build it off of.
But there's a little buffer.
Yeah, there's a little buffer there. I also included new this year was a line item for collection system maintenance. I spoke with Val of Weston and Sampson, the treatment operator, wastewater operator in Chatham. He recommended carrying $20,000, which would cover expenses like jetting out sewer mains, vacuuming out wet wells, grease traps, wet well pumping, things of that nature. So that's new this year. And also different, big increase from last year's electric usage. Last year we had only budgeted $4,000. This year I'm carrying $20,000. That's based on, I based that upon Chatham's pump station electrical costs. They have 11 stations. They budget about 40, They have 11 pump stations, and they were budgeting $48,000 annually per pump station. So we have, 4 what I would consider larger pump stations equal to Chatham's, and we have the one very small grinder. So it equals about, let's see, we have 4,300 per station times the 4. That gets us up to about 17,000. I brought it up to 20 to carry the electric cost for that one smaller station, knowing that it's going to be, considerably less than the others. One other thing that I would point out that is new this year on the worksheet, if you draw your attention to the line item for, with the IMA prefix about halfway down, contract services, the first number you would see is the $621,500. You'll notice that doesn't have the 23.08% multiplier in it like the other fixed IMA costs. Last year I was able to get Weston and Sampson to break that $621,500 line item into collection system operations and treatment plant operations, so that we would only be paying that 23% on treatment plant operations as opposed to paying 23% of their collection system as well, which we're not gaining any benefit from. So that's one change this year from last year, which lowered our obligation about 621 times 23. So that, lowered our obligation about $50,000 by pulling the collection system out.
$50,000 per year.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. Can I ask, so is there an opportunity to put any solar, for example, at the pump stations and possibly have that paid by maybe the Clean Energy Center? I don't know if they have any funding right now for that kind of thing. They
So-
used to.
Yeah, well, I guess,
That imaginary
we wouldn't have,
generator.
yeah, so I wouldn't say, at the pump station locations, I don't believe we would have sufficient square footage to
Okay.
accommodate a solar array. However, like we did with the Nexamp solar project with the water items, we could conceivably participate in, you know, a
Creating
solar
another-
project like we did with the water side of things. That said, I would caution getting into it today, because that's based on the electric consumption of the facility, and until we get everyone hooked up, would be doing a disservice, because we wouldn't be able to obtain all of the credits we could until we're running at really full speed and get an accurate usage history. So I'd say once we get through our 2-year order to connect, and have a better understanding of the flow, the, you know, full electrical usage, that we could then pursue a solar agreement that we could maximize that credit.
Or go back to the Board of Selectmen and ask for more of the town solar?
Well, this would be an amendment to get these into the cap landfill project.
Yeah.
Would require an amendment to Schedule Z, which I know is a big deal previously, because if you change Schedule Z, I believe there's some percentage associated with the contract where if the kilowatt hours fluctuates, that you can it opens up renegotiations, which I know is part of why when we went on the water side and they started treating us as an off-taker, why we didn't push back was because, or why we didn't take our meters and run, was because had we done that, it would have opened up the CVEC contract for negotiations, which would have given we would have had less of a lucrative solar deal if we reopened to negotiate, because the state of the market was worse than when we got into the contract.
I meant not with CVEC, not to renegotiate that whole contract, but with the town, how much this department, percentage-wise, gets out of that.
So,
Follow me? You're laughing at me. I know, I'm throwing a crazy idea out there.
I've been down that trail for years.
I'm just saying, do you know
I'd
what
say
I'm saying?
I'd say
Yeah.
they're kind of two separate things.
Two separate things,
Because to add
absolutely.
the wastewater into, or be part of the solar with the town, they'd have to be added to the Schedule Z. So,
Oh, the town doesn't get X amount of revenue from that project, and
we do, but I would say if we're gonna reconsider what the water department gets for
from the town.
for
Yeah.
our meters that are contained within Schedule Z, that would be a discussion amongst the commission and the selectmen, to revisit that, you know, treating us as an off-taker or not. But I would say that's kind of a separate, you know, conversation from wastewater in bringing that into.
So if I'm understanding you
Let's just hold on a second.
correctly,
I think we should kind of getting off subject here with,
Yeah.
solar. If we want to talk about solar, we'll put it on the agenda. We have deeper conversations. I just think we're getting off track right now as far as the wastewater. But I love solar, and I think it's a great idea, but
well, I'm talking about the electric, that's what I'm talking about. And I guess
Right.
it was just trying to understand if because we only receive half of what the landfill is, the water department.
portion of that. So it's not
Portion of,
yes,
a portion of that. So my question was, can the town, Board of Selectmen, up our portion because we now have a wastewater part?
I'll just say one statement quick.
Sure.
Okay. Just coming from the electric background, we can't negotiate with the town as part of the contract in terms of percentage. The only thing that can increase our money as an off-taker is an increase in our usage. So like if we had a new building, or if we had some change like that, that would be the time to look at the whole picture of the town. But we absolutely, you know, it's built in with those grants and laws and everything else. The town is not capable of saying, well, we're giving you 25%, we're gonna make it 30.
Because they did change on us, at least the we were getting 100% of our
Right, but that's a
portion.
different topic, yep.
And then, yeah, they said, well, we're gonna treat you as an
That's when we were part
off-taker.
of the, yeah,
You know.
but now as an off-taker, it's based on your usage, our usage.
It was based on it before
Right,
too, and then
yeah.
now we get 50%
Right.
of based on our
Right.
usage. But that, yeah,
But either way, I mean, it's not gonna go up or down unless your usage goes, like you say, they're
Yeah.
both based on usage.
or we could get them to no longer consider us as an off-taker,
Right,
which,
but-
how we were previously, prior to, I think it was 2016,
Yeah.
maybe? We were getting,
I
140,000,
understand.
and then they said, wait, we're gonna treat you as an off-taker, now you get
Right,
70.
right.
All right, let's get back to the wastewater enterprise fund.
One comment. The only way for this department to benefit from solar is to do our own solar.
That's right,
End of discussion.
Okay.
it's true.
Dan?
Okay, where was I?
Sorry.
Sorry.
So we have the increase in electric, the addition of the collection system line item. Indirects have been slightly updated. Again, there's still some outstanding items.
So, all right, so the administration isn't charging at all for their salaries for wastewater?
Correct. So for Carol did, in the email she shared the indirects with, did note that there were no allocations for administration, accounting, and treasurer collector for wastewater, as she doesn't believe there's sufficient data to accurately reflect indirect percentages.
Didn't there used to be with the previous town administrator for a while?
There is for the water indirects.
Right.
But I don't know that last year,
Okay, doesn't matter.
yeah.
That's all right, yeah.
there likely will be in the future, but at this point, not yet.
You mean for the wastewater
Yes.
budget?
For wastewater indirects. And I guess going back, if I can, to the munis cover sheet, based on the various reductions and changes that we were able to get, we're actually showing a decrease in operating budget over last year. Last year, we were basing on a lot of estimates, one of which was the contract operations estimate, the 50,000 that we were able to save through breaking up Chatham's contract operations agreement. So there was some savings that have allowed us, to come in less than we were last year at this point.
Good?
I guess, yeah.
All right. Any questions for wastewater?
Well, I guess, sorry, if I can, I will be bringing this back, before the board, once I do get the updated budget from Chatham. The table is set up so that I can just input their FY23 budget figures and we'll spit it out. So once I have those, I'll bring that back to the next meeting.
All right, thanks, Dan. All right, capital plan.
Right?
Ready?
So, included in the packet was capital plan documents for both wastewater and water potential capital articles. I guess to kick off with wastewater, those are the first ones that were in the packet. These, I would just state, are very preliminary, based off of my best guess at the trajectory we're headed on, given we're about to engage in CWMP revisions. DHY is no longer on the table. Everything that's transpired since we were using the CDM wastewater tables. So I put in what I hope to be at least decent placeholders that we can build off as we get further along in this process. Where we had appropriated $2.1 million this past October for design, I'm anticipating that between the year or so to complete the design, that the earliest we would be requesting money to complete the construction of that would be FY24. So that's the first capital article that is in there for wastewater, and that would be to complete the Round Cove and Pleasant Bay areas in East Harwich.
So that, when you say FY24, that's May of FY23?
But we'd be requesting those funds, yes.
May of FY23. So, okay, so that's a year and a half.
Yeah.
The design should be done. Okay, thank you.
Beyond that, I also included in the same fiscal year, 24, to complete the construction of the Route 28 sewer main installation.
I'm sorry. So that's May 2023, not FY,
So we would be
voting.
voting to approve that money in May of 2023, right? May.
That makes it FY24.
Yeah, FY24, yeah.
Okay, yeah, May 2023.
Yeah, because we'll be in May 22 in five months.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah. I always get confused with the fiscal year,
Me
calendar
too,
year.
yeah, okay.
So there's, as I was saying, there's FY24 Route 28 sewer main installation. This is to piggyback along with the water main and Mass DOT paving project in that area. Beyond that, I have also included for FY25 Phase 4 collection system design. This, I would just throw out that without a treatment plant, this really doesn't go anywhere. We're looking to explore regional opportunities through the CWMP revisions. I'm optimistic that we'll be able to come to some arrangement or agreement with the town of Dennis. I know they're actively working towards a treatment plant design. I would just state that this request would be contingent upon, the availability of a treatment plant, should that be, the direction we're going. This is really the first part of the collection system design, excluding the Route 28 segment, because that's, a DOT reason for doing that in the road cut moratorium, but this would be really the first design contract that seeks to address nitrogen outside of East Harwich. So that is what I've prepared for the wastewater capital articles. That FY25 and those out years, I think, need a lot more clarification as we get further along. But I think for discussion purposes, at least there's a placeholder. So those are the three. I don't know if we want to keep going into the water, right into the water items.
Any questions about the wastewater? Good.
So wastewater, water capital, these are, what we've previously discussed. I think in the last representation, they were in the table form. So these are the new capital outlay submission forms from administration. So I've incorporated the plan as previously discussed into this format, but also included what we discussed at the last meeting, the additional kind of wish list projects that we're hoping to accomplish sufficient state federal grants. Also included is the vehicle quotes from DPW for the first capital requests. Also for FY24 new well construction. I guess I can just throw in a little update about the well exploration, or talking about well construction. The drillers are going to be coming back beginning in January. They're having staffing issues, getting people. Their staff went from 18 to 3, so they haven't.
Wow.
where a lot of people look.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to work anymore.
So this would be voted next May?
Yes.
Alright.
May of 23. Right. Right. And I guess an easy way to back into that, what Joe had instructed us to do, the area that says date needed by, that's the first day of the fiscal year in which the funds would be available. So, available July 1, we'll be requesting it in May of 23. I actually also should note with respect to this specific capital request, we had a project cost of $500,000 here. That is likely no longer accurate for a couple of reasons. One being, it is looking like we are going to need to add filters at the well 10 treatment plant based on the water quality of the well, that we're in the process of developing. And also, if we wanted to, I guess it would be my recommendation, if you recall from the last meeting, we had discussed the North Harwich and Headwaters Drive resiliency project. If we're going to be out constructing a new well and running a pipeline, between well 10 and Headwaters, that we also include completing that connection from well 10 to the backside of Headwaters. So if we wanted to kind of increase the size and scope of this project to not only cover the installation of the well, the treatment plant upgrades that we'll need to do for adding the 2 filter pressure vessels and also the cross-country water main to connect to the backside of Headwaters, we may want to consider increasing the value of this request.
When we did the new well exploration,
Yep.
I thought, wasn't that around $500,000?
We had 250,000, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just,
Well, and the $500,000, right, so if it was good water quality and we could do, if you're familiar with the 3 little wells right outside of this building that really just have a pedestal and, the wells in the ground, if we were able to do something like that, we likely could have done the whole project with the $500,000. And, water quality being good.
it seemed, not having seen a quote or anything, it seemed low to be a new well and all that, but I'll see the paperwork eventually.
Yeah, it's gonna, and it also depends, we have wells that are in buildings, wells that aren't in buildings, so depending on what this is the optimistic, at the time, but I think it's certainly grown a little bit since we've got into it. All those are the same, let's see. So, for FY25, I guess the next 2 or 3 are identical to what we previously discussed, so I would draw your attention to the FY25 distribution system upgrades capital form, which is, I've kind of consolidated, we discussed 5 projects, wish list projects at the last meeting. I took, the 4 that weren't connected to well 10 and incorporated them into kind of a lump sum or lump capital request for distribution system upgrades for FY25. I think that's an appropriate year to include those projects, just given that, we're still waiting to see how the money from the infrastructure bill is going to be dispersed. Then there's going to have to be engineering services that go in prior to us, being able to really put a bucket in the ground. So I just think timeline-wise, FY25 is appropriate, at least at this stage of the game. If we see reason to expedite or move things up upon new information with respect to funding, we could do that at a later date. but I have, a rough price tag of about $10 million for the 4 projects, in here. Again, those are back of the napkin estimates, but that is the total for all 4 of those distribution projects.
And those funds will be dispersed over the course of 5 years?
Yeah.
$1 billion, is it $1 billion a year?
I know we're getting 188 million, I think, this year, but and then there was 200 million under what Baker just signed this past week.
Right, there's 3 different
Yeah.
options. But, those funds will be discussed in a meeting, right, in January?
Yeah.
27th or something like that?
Yeah.
So, for the plan, for the rollout. So we'll get better information at that point?
Yes.
Okay.
And as, you know, I'm sure there's gonna be more, I'm sure I won't be the only one, and I'm sure there's gonna be a variety of programs that, you know, we can seek funding through. So, you know, kind of 2
Yeah,
million.
I think it's great, yeah, absolutely. Nothing wrong with the wish list, if we get some
I know.
state funds.
And, yeah, so that capital plan on the new forms with incorporating the revisions and discussions from last meeting. The capital outlay committee meeting that was originally scheduled for this past Tuesday, I believe it was the last Friday?
Tuesday.
Sorry. was postponed due to quorum issues. I have a tentative rescheduled date of the 22nd. I'll share that once confirmed.
December?
Yeah,
Any idea of time?
I'm not sure yet.
Is that a Wednesday, a Tuesday? or-
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Sorry.
So, just since we've gone through all of these, what do we have for next year, for this coming May 2022 vote?
This year, I believe it is just the 2 vehicle replacements. Yeah.
So, the first one is the 90,000?
Yeah.
You already have the quote.
Yeah.
All right. And what's the second one?
Well, that's it for this year.
That's it. So that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a light year, yeah.
yeah.
And we had originally had new well construction on
Right.
this year, but I don't see a way for us
Right.
to complete the drilling, investigatory work, and get a set of plans designed and bid before
With 3
May.
people.
Yeah, before May, so,
No, but I mean, that's great because there's been so much pressure going on. If at least one piece is a lighter load, it
yeah.
at least more room to focus on the infrastructure coming out and planning for
Right.
all that stuff. So, only one item, great.
Can I ask a quick question? The municipality,
Judith.
what'd you call me?
Maureen, I just used to Maureen, so. Sorry.
Do municipalities ever lease vehicles?
Yes.
Does it make sense? Maybe it doesn't make sense.
I want to say we leased the Peterbilt and then bought it afterwards.
Can I?
Please?
Okay.
Maureen.
I don't know why it took so long for this town to get into that, because I work for other towns that have been leasing things for, ever. But the difference is the word, what most towns do is lease with a offer to buy for $1, which is what we're doing here now, because you don't
okay.
want to have a continuous expense, you want to take the
Right.
chance that you can pass it down or whatever and stuff like that. But now they have started doing it, and it saves a tremendous amount of money and work, plus your budgets are,
Fixed.
more level. So I know they are now, I don't know the specifics of equipment, but, for some reason, in this town, whenever it got discussed, I remember on finance committee, people would think of it as like lease and turn in 3 years.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that, so, it's just financing.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, if you wanted to pay over
Right.
time, I guess in the situation of what we've, submitted, we're proposing to pay it out of retained earnings, I think, I guess in a lease instance, maybe you could include, if it's $5,000 a year in a line item in your budget to pay that, if you didn't want to, take the full
Pay up
payment.
front.
Right, yeah, and that's it, and in other towns that are enterprise, they just throw the money into an article. When it's voted, it's all appropriated, and then they just dole it out.
Seems to me we had been down that path. There was some issue about, that allocation necessary for lease.
Well, there was some talk about that, and
Yeah.
back a couple of town administrators, they wanted to talk to me about that, because I handled the program for another town.
Yeah,
But then that meeting came out, because I could never understand. The only other difference was, when you vote anything, it's presumed by municipal accounting that it's for 3 years. So you have to make an adjustment where you say, well, this one is for 5 years, or this one is for that. But I mean, it's not the end of the world, and you're right, that was some kind of a stopping block,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think it was more communication than anything
well,
else.
I saw, Department of Revenue didn't seem to be jumping for joy to do that.
Well, they,
And it was the lifeline of the equipment
yeah,
they were dealing with, and, how the lease payments would be set up,
yeah.
whether there's any interest
You know,
or charges.
I'll tell you how much it's changed. Now there are leasing companies, finance companies that deal specifically with municipals, and they make a fortune doing it. And there's ones
Sure,
called
they
like
do.
tax exempt this.
Yeah.
So whatever communication problem was going on before between revenue and this town, I don't know, but
Yeah.
Is it more commonly used for larger vehicles too? I mean, I know I've heard it most,
okay.
commonly
So-
discussed with big,
Right, and I'll tell you, police work and stuff like that, it is a lot of work. So I used to beg the towns, please don't do it for anything less than 50,000. Expensive, pay it in 1 year, or actually even less than 100,000. So you're right, there's a tremendous amount of administrative work that goes with each package. So, that's why I think it should, and often is, just for larger things. Because if you're doing it for police cars and everything else, it's madness,
Right.
Yeah. I think the other thing too that came up, if I recall, was the life of the vehicle or equipment. Here you are paying, and it's under the lease thing, and the payments are higher, like to get it to a 3-year period. But still, there's 10 more years of good in the vehicle.
Right.
Why get rid of it?
Well, no, that's, don't get rid of it, that was
So
a bad
then the
idea.
discussion came up about buying out the lease,
Right.
and that got expensive.
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of things need to be resolved before you go down that path.
Yeah, well, I think that they're doing it now with Carol, so.
Glenn, what you got?
I think that covers the capital. Yeah.
All right. Anything else for the end for the capital plan? Move on to the town report.
So, town report submission is going to be fast approaching. Included in the packet with last year's town report. Wanted to kind of provide that to the board and take any suggestions, recommendations, any changes we may want to make so that we can prepare a draft to bring back prior to submission.
My own question is, do you think there'll ever be a time they'll stop printing the books so we can save 10
Don't
million?
even go there.
Huh?
Don't even go there.
Also has a Rolodex.
After I die, then you can work on it.
Your reason to expand the library, town hall library.
More money to OPEB.
You know what? They've been printing in books.
Well, as far as the town report, how about we just take the time to read, I haven't seen this yet, so.
I went through it, I didn't see anything wrong with it.
I mean, it's pretty, from year to year, it doesn't generally vary much. We're oftentimes updating statistics, which is fine, but if there's a desire to, change or do something different, happy to do that.
So these 8 pages are all last year's?
Financials, yep.
Alan, you see that we, gave, almost 11,000 in payments last year. Page
Say it
3.
again?
Page 3 at the bottom.
And adjustments. So I would just interject that also includes internal adjustments for our own consumption.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that includes the department's abatement? Oh. My only question is, this is both the water and wastewater together. Is that gonna confuse people outside of this room? Does there need to be any kind of introductory?
That's a good question, and what has my wheels turning is that there's wastewater discussion, wastewater information to report that's not specific to this board. With the selectmen, retaining care and control of implementation of CWMP. Let me give some thought to that, because it may be covered under, there's certainly things to report. The board was very active, with sewer rates, regulations, the system coming online, and maybe this is the place to relay that information, and then under the selectmen or another place to do CWMP related things.
Just wanted to throw it out there
Could you,
so there's no politics,
yeah, could you not change the, on the title, you have Board of Water, Wastewater Commissioners for the Water Department? And
It's the same water department, right?
Yeah, and create a separate one for wastewater,
Oh, that's an idea.
especially now.
Yeah.
Really get going.
just so they don't confuse,
Yeah.
like literally leak investigation, 51 leak investigations with wastewater.
Right. To better reflect in the headlines and titles that, these are water activities, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's, here's at the city, there's nothing in here on wastewater.
And you would be adding those capitals in that we discussed, capital plan ones on page 4?
Mhm.
All right, okay. I can't tell if they're already in there.
This is just a copy of last
Yeah,
year's.
okay.
That will change to 5-year capital plan, and
Gotcha.
and feel free to, if you think of something later, shoot me an email.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just looking at the 7-year fiscal year 2028 relocate water department headquarters, Canaan Road.
Yes, well, we had talked about that, previously, and we had put it on the, furthest year out in response to the MTBE detection.
Right.
I believe the town's going in a different direction with respect to the Queen Anne Road property, but that's to be continued.
Are they transferring it to the trust, the Affordable Housing Trust? Was that it?
I'm not sure exactly what they're doing.
I thought it was a contender for that, but then there was discussion, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't think they've finalized
Yeah, I
their
think they
stuff
spelled it
on
off
that.
for some reason, yeah.
John, your comment about lead service line? Well, here in this report, they did 87 for metal water services of that kind of pipe that connected.
Steel service.
Okay, anything else for the town report? All right.
So, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Will the town report be on like the next agenda to remind us for comments or?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, all right, yeah.
I can try to, yeah,
I haven't read this yet.
no, that's all right. And, fortunately, we're, I would argue, ahead of the curve, because we're still in 2021, so I think, these are usually, I forget the timeline, it's sometime after the first of the year.
All good?
Oh, good.
All right, superintendent's report.
All right, a couple of things. We did have an appellate hearing last Friday for the Convoy versus Harwich. There was an abatement that was denied by the board. They appealed to the state, and I'm happy to report that we were,
Backed up?
yeah, we won, I guess, is that the right way to say? A decision was made in the town's favor with respect to that abatement. We have interviews on Monday for the 2 secondary distribution operator positions that are open. Wanted to just report that we completed our annual tank inspections. And I would like to, one, relay thanks from the staff for the, Dunkin' Donuts. It's very much appreciated. And also ask that the board in the past, the board has given a commissioner's day off, if you will, to the staff for, winning the Public Water Suppliers Award. And I would ask the board to consider potentially granting another commissioner's day off to the staff for December 23rd. Christmas, we're observing on the 24th, so that would give everyone an extra day with their families around the holidays. Really, show appreciation for the staff.
I can support that.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think that's all I got.
All right, commission report. Mr. Thompson, anything?
Nothing. I'm good.
No.
Noreen?
Nothing.
Mr. John? No, all good. Just a couple quick things. The contract signatures with Chatham, where are we with the contract signatures?
Alright, so, let me give you the latest. So I received correspondence from Bob Duncanson yesterday. He was returning from vacation for 2 weeks. Tom, the DPW director, is out for knee surgery. So Bob is providing Tom and Jill his input based on the revised contract, and he is he's emailed Jill for an update, and he is doing what he can in Tom's absence. So barring, if I don't hear anything progress-wise, middle of next week, I'd be, looking to have Jill reach out again to Jill to usher that along.
But that's all we're waiting for. We're just waiting for the signature on that so we can start flow. Is that?
Yep.
When did you send those revisions?
Oh,
About,
I sent them, I've been working with Weston and Sampson since last year. I would say September, October. Was by the time I had worked through with Weston and Sampson, we had worked out all our comments. My goal was to make sure that we weren't waiting on that. We were waiting on DEP's approval. DEP's approval came in October 18th, and now we're here 2 months out from there, still trying to get it done.
This is beyond acceptable. Beyond acceptable.
Yeah.
Someone needs to take responsibility in Chatham, get it signed, and get it to us because they're holding us up.
Yeah.
Unacceptable. And whatever you need for support from the board, as far as a letter or phone calls, let us know, as far as I'm concerned, because unacceptable.
Yeah.
I'm happy to call Bob and put a fire, I've known him for years.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease. I'm not telling anyone not to call.
Well, if you need a letter requesting, demanding, at this point, it's just, I can't even believe this is where we're at this point. It's been months.
And so their town administrator can't sign, I mean, it's got, like.
She certainly has the authority to sign. I don't know the dynamics over there. I know that once she was made aware that there was delays on behalf of Chatham, she very quickly,
Responded.
lit a fire, if you will. And that got Bob and Tom to reconvene, providing their comments to Weston and Sampson, which they've replied while they were on vacation, and he just got back this week, so this is...
But in all fairness, he just came back from vacation 2 weeks ago. This has been going on for months.
Yeah.
It's just, it's enough.
And just, if I could just vent for a minute too, if there were people out there that really were interested in connecting as soon as possible, now they're into the time of frozen ground.
Right.
And so they've officially been bumped out of the opportunity to, like if they were having failing or close to failing septics or something, now they pretty much have to wait till spring or late winter, thanks to this.
It's just, I just can't even. You already talked about the infrastructure bill, and then the COVID funds. We talked about the money, like 2.1, 2.3 million.
2.3 million.
Do you have any idea where that is?
I haven't had much further clarification or update on that.
I'm excited about that, the
Yeah.
funds, because I mean, that's something we could, put into the
Carol,
town, to the property, yeah.
Yeah, Carol, the finance director, called me last night and inquired as to my, willingness to attend the Cape Cod Commission, is it the Cape and Islands Clean Water Trust meetings. One of her counterparts was bringing their DPW director, because there was some technical component to the discussion that was kind of beyond the finance role. So I'm planning on attending those in the future, which should hopefully get us better informed, more quickly informed of dispersal of that money, which I believe is primarily wastewater related, but
Do we, without a long discussion, but do we know what types of things those funds could be used for if we got them any?
Are you talking about the Association to Preserve Cape Cod?
that's a
Is that a different one?
different thing.
Okay.
No, yeah, the trust is, it's like the finalized version of the wastewater task force, and it receives funds from the state, and, I think all the towns now have become members of it, and it's the idea of this group getting together and figuring out how these funds are gonna be allocated. Like, for example, Provincetown's built things years ago. Why should, how does that, but yeah, I would love to come in on some of those meetings, having worked with most of those folks previously on the wastewater task force for years. There's a lot of politics, and I would just like to make sure that, just listening and make sure that Harwich is represented.
Yeah, I know Dawn, I think, is on the
Yeah.
board, or something, but,
No, I'd
it's
love
gonna be
to
a
just
value.
be a fly on the wall.
It's gonna be a value for me and, the town, because those various funding opportunities really do have the potential to impact our schedule and how and when we do things. We may work a little bit more aggressively, understanding that we're gonna get some money.
Right.
Or, time things differently. That, with the fact that we're doing the CWMP revisions, and, it all kind of ties together nicely, so.
And APCC is the Association to Preserve Cape Cod. It's the largest nonprofit on the Cape, and they've been in place for, 25, 30 years. And Andy, who runs that, selectman in Mashpee, and also runs the other coalition board. He used to run the Barnstable Water Coalition, I think it was. It was funded through the county, And that went away when, what's his name became commissioner. He got voted out this time around. Yeah, and Andy's, really good about getting these, directly with the state administration.
I'd be interested to be a fly on the wall with Judith also on the COVID funds one if it's appropriate, or if it's somewhere I can drive.
Yeah, it's supposed to be an open meeting, but they never post the meetings.
There's the APCC, you should all have a copy of the letter that in your email I shared, but that does state that, to help tackle wastewater challenges, municipalities will have access to 0% loans and loan principal forgiveness of 25% of construction costs. So, I think 24 million that we just appropriated, I think 18 of it or so is in construction. That'd be a pretty big lump of money to come back to the town. So.
Yeah.
That's all I
Yeah.
had, that's all I had, Dan.
Yeah.
So, the next meeting. So,
I didn't bring my calendar.
Going-
Can I take it, guys?
yeah, going into Christmas. Is there anything pressing before, the first week in January?
I am planning to be out some time with kids during Christmas to New Year's. So I guess
The 3rd through the 7th, or what are you looking at?
if we maybe would consider going the following week, just because I'm going to be just getting back.
Oh,
I'd have 3 days, next week and just getting back.
So the 13th of January?
Yeah, and then if something arises in between,
So we're going to a Thursday? Just,
Yeah.
Is
I
today
didn't-
Thursday? No, today's Friday.
Friday, yeah. We just did today just to get this meeting in
Right,
before.
Okay.
I think I can do any day.
Yeah, I can do either of those,
Yeah.
Wednesday,
didn't you have a
Thursday.
preference to be not Tuesday or Thursday, I thought? Did that
Not
change?
Tuesday,
Not Tuesday.
not Tuesday.
All right.
Thank you for remembering that.
So are we looking at Thursday? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah.
Wednesday or Thursday, yeah?
Thursday the 13th.
11?
11.
22. I just had a right 22. Oh.
Does that work?
So January 13th, Thursday at 11, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Does that work for everybody?
I didn't bring my calendar, so I'll make it work.
Gary?
Yeah, that's fine. The 13th or
I didn't bring my
At 11?
Rolodex, Alan.
Yeah.
I've got one like yours.
I have a Rolodex too, I mean.
A real one?
A real one.
That's
Hey,
what
it's
you get.
worth gold.
Super.
A motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right. Merry
Merry
Christmas.
A lot of
Yeah.
good stuff.